evening and welcome. It is time once again for CU Immigration here on WRFU LP Urbana 104.5 FM. I will be your host for this evening. My name is Mr. Garza, and I am here to let you know that WRFU is an open forum for the Urbana-Champaign community. Views expressed are those of the speakers and are not intended to represent WRFU or UCIMC, or, as we like to say on the televised version of this show, UPTV. These views are our own, and by our, in this instance, I mean me, because I'm the only one here. And there will be some leakage of views coming from the things that I read to you, but basically, blame me if you have any blame to spread around or to offer, or however you want to put it. Anyway, the first thing that I was going to read is really disturbing. I'm not even sure how to begin thinking about it. It is very disturbing, and it's from Newsweek, so it's not just like, you know, you can find things that are disturbing online if you look for them, and they can be pretty wild sounding, and then, you know, when you hear about it again from a more reputable source, it's like, oh, that's not quite what they were making it sound like. So consider this a developing kind of story. But anyway, it is entitled ICE Offering Citizens Academy Course with Training on Arresting Immigrants. Yes, you heard that right. Citizens Academy Course with Training on Arresting Immigrants. It is as bad as it sounds. The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, or ICE, is set to launch a 6-week Citizens Academy course on immigration enforcement, which will include training for citizens on how to arrest undocumented immigrants. A letter published online by the St. Louis Interfaith Committee on Latin America appears to show ICE Chicago Field Office Director Robert Gaudian inviting shareholders to participate in the course, which includes 6 days of training over a six-week period starting in September. Quote, "You have been identified as a valued member of the community who may have interest in participating in the inaugural class of the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Removal Operations Chicago Citizens Academy," the letter states, noting that the program is the first of its kind. Gaudian states that the program will serve as a pilot for nationwide implementation. During the training, stakeholders would receive training on a number of facets and responsibilities of ICE/ERO operations, he says. Including in the course would be training in defensive tactics, firearms familiarization, and targeted arrests. The training would be scenario-based, he states, adding that exercises would be conducted in a safe and positive environment. In a statement sent to Newsweek, ICE's spokesperson, Nicole Alberico, said the Academy was an extension of the community relations work ICE is already doing in the community. Quote, "The goal is to build bridges with the community by offering a day-in-the-life perspective of a federal law enforcement agency," she said. Alberico said the programming was modeled after other academies, including those run by Homeland Security Investigations Unit, as well as by the FBI and local departments, all with the goal of directly engaging and educating the public. In an official statement on the program, ICE further said, quote, "The Citizens Academy is an opportunity for the community to get a transparent insider's view of ICE's immigration enforcement operations. ICE is inviting interested participants from a variety of stakeholder backgrounds, including community groups, state and local elected leaders, congressional staff, consular officials, and business and religious leaders," the agency said. While Gaudian's letter did not mention these aspects of the Academy's curriculum, the ICE statement said it would include, but is not limited to, classroom instruction, visiting an immigration detention center, learning more about the health care ICE provides to those in its custody, and examining ICE's role in an immigration case from start to finish. Conversely, the Citizens Academy affords ICE the opportunity to hear from participants and learn from their perspectives, it added. The Academy is a natural progression from the outreach work we have already been doing with our community, Gaudian said in his own statement. Our community meetings are only a few hours long, but this is a 6-week opportunity for the community to get to know our officers and understand our mission. Speaking with Newsweek on Thursday, however, Chicago Congressman Jesus Chuy Garcia said he was disturbed by the program, which he fears will lead to racial profiling, surveillance, and potential violence. The Citizens Academy was first brought to Garcia's attention when his wife spotted a social media post about it. The first thing I thought was, is this a prank or fake news, or what is it? Because it's appearing on social media and neither I or any of my staff had been alerted or reached out to by ICE, he said. As a member of Congress, Garcia had thought a program like this would have been brought to lawmakers' attention prior to its rollout, but it never was. I should not be learning about this on social media, and I resent that, he said. The 6-week course, Garcia said, appeared to be inviting people to become an extension of ICE, to possibly surveil their neighbors who might be undocumented. He also feared that the invitation might appeal to right-wing individuals who might like the vigilante lifestyle, which could lead to potential violence. Absolutely, when you incite people with hateful and intolerant rhetoric for 4 years and you ratchet things up, especially if the polls show you're behind or struggling, you can become reckless, and that's my fear, he said, appearing to refer to President Donald Trump's current struggle in the polls. People who share the president's belief about immigration, he said, could be drawn to the program and feel that they are being given a license to profile, surveil, and potentially attack community members. Encouraging potential profiling of community members, he adds, flies in the face of widespread calls for systemic racism to be addressed in the wake of George Floyd's killing. Now, IFCLA appears to agree, saying on its website, quote, "Our tax dollars should not be spent on this hatred, especially not when a global pandemic continues to devastate our communities. Immigrants are our neighbors, friends, family, co-workers, and classmates. This blatant endorsement of white supremacy coded in a false display of patriotism seeks to excuse racial profiling and will only lead to increased violence, hatred, and xenophobia in our communities," the IFCLA said. Alberico told Newsweek that ICE's stance is that the misunderstanding, anger, and confusion of what the agency does on a daily basis is exactly why the Academy is needed. According to Guardian's letter, the training would be held every Tuesday from 2 to 6 p.m. at ICE's Chicago field office, starting on September 15th. The training sessions would culminate on October 20th. Following completion of the training session, a graduation ceremony is expected to be held on Friday, October 23rd, with graduates being awarded a certificate and commemorative coin. This, of course, can also be used to obtain continuing education credits, which I said would be available upon request. This course can also be used, Noting that the U.S. is currently in the middle of a pandemic, Guardian said in his letter that participants would be issued personal protective equipment and that social distancing guidelines would be adhered to. So, yeah, this is pretty much as bad as what it sounds like it is. I can't even fathom how this could be a good idea, or anyone could think it was a good idea, unless what they were trying to do is recruit vigilantes. I mean, there's nothing else about this. You don't have to spend time with members of ICE and learn all their techniques in order to understand what it is they're doing to our communities. And I can't think of any other possible reason for something like this except to give people who want to be sort of vigilante. Yes, that is the word. Vigilantes, some kind of training so that they can say, hey, I've been properly trained on how to do this. Now I can go and get those illegals in the right way or whatever. I don't know how they would do it, but this is really, really wrong and really bad and worthy of being protested in every possible way that we can think of to do it. So I will most certainly be bringing this up before our group, CU Immigration Forum, and we'll be talking to other groups, and we'll see if anything we can do about this. because this should not be happening. There is no excuse for this of any sort, and it is a really, really strange and uncomfortable idea. And I hope it goes down in flames, but we will see. Anyway, moving on. Our next article addresses something that's been in the news lately, and which you were probably somewhat familiar with from having read newspapers, looked at things online. I mean, everybody's talking about this right now, so you're probably familiar. But anyway, I will read this story anyway. It is entitled, Harvard MIT Sue Trump Administration Over Rule That Strips Visas from International Students. And this is kind of pertinent to our local situation here, as Champaign-Urbana is very much formed around the University of Illinois, and we have a lot of international students here. Anyway, let's see what the story says. Harvard University and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, are suing the Trump administration in federal court over a move to strip international students of their visas if their coursework is entirely online when classes resume in the fall. I mean, what possible reasons could there be to do something like this? It boggles my mind. Let's just make life harder for some people. Anyway, the lawsuit filed Wednesday in U.S. District Court in Boston against the Department of Homeland Security and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, we just heard about them, seeks a temporary restraining order against the policy which was announced Monday. The lawsuit also seeks an order vacating the policy and a declaration that it is unlawful. ICE announced Monday that it was rescinding its COVID-19 exemption for international students, requiring all students on F1 visas whose university curricula are entirely online to depart the country, and barring any such student currently outside the United States from entering or re-entering the United States, the lawsuit said. ICE's action leaves hundreds of thousands of international students with no educational options within the United States. Just weeks from the start of the fall semester, these students are largely unable to transfer to universities providing on-campus instruction, the lawsuit said, adding that for many such students returning to their home countries for online instruction is impossible, impracticable, prohibitively expensive, and or dangerous. The Trump administration's move was seen as a way to pressure colleges and universities to reopen their campuses with in-person classes during the pandemic. That, the lawsuit said, would require housing students in densely packed residential halls, which is neither safe nor educationally advisable, and force schools to reopen without sufficient time to address the additional risks to the health and safety of their communities. The effect, and perhaps even the goal, is to create as much chaos for universities and international students as possible, the lawsuit said. DHS and ICE did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The government announced Monday that international students will not be allowed to stay in the country if the institution in which they're enrolled is holding online-only courses this fall, and those failing to comply with the rules will risk deportation. Students on F1 and M1 visas who face such a situation must depart the country or take other measures, such as transferring to a school with in-person instruction, to remain in lawful status, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency said in a news release. Those who violate the rules may face immigration consequences, including, but not limited to, the initiation of removal proceedings, the agency said. Ken Cuccinelli, the acting deputy DHS secretary, defended the policy during an interview with CNN Tuesday. If they're not going to be a student, or they're going to be 100% online, then they don't have a basis to be here, Cuccinelli said. They should go home, and then they can return when the school opens. On Monday, Harvard Faculty of Arts and Sciences announced plans to bring back up to 40% of its undergraduates back to campus, including all first-year students, for the fall semester. MIT said only seniors will be invited back to campus this fall semester. Chris Wintersinger, A Harvard PhD student from Canada told NBC News that he felt the Trump administration's immigration policies do not seem to recognize the humanness and worth that people such as myself bring to this country. In short, these orders, one after another, distract me and my colleagues from the work we're doing and make us question whether we are truly valued and welcomed here, he said. Wintersinger, a bioengineering student, said he may not be required to leave the United States under the order because he physically works in a lab, but he still feels impacted by the policy because of the uncertainty it weighs upon my status here in the United States. Educating international students here and then watching policy be enacted that forces us out or makes us question our value here is analogous to a farmer stripping their topsoil and shipping it far away, he said. It's completely nonsensical, stupid, and cruel. And those are great words to end that story with, because that is exactly what it is. Although it is not entirely nonsensical, I do agree with what the lawsuit says, that this is partly, the intention is partly to force schools to open up. The current administration is doing everything it can to force everybody to open up and just do things as normally as possible, and ignore the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic and that our numbers are rising every day. I'm going to say our numbers are rising by record numbers, and that sounds kind of redundant, but that's what's happened. The case numbers are rising by record numbers virtually every single day. And so you would not think that this would be a time to say, hey, let's open everything up. I know, as someone who runs a business locally, that I will be taking a very hard look at what the university choices and the local schools, the high schools and junior highs and all those things, the fall semester, and see how they're going about their business, because our store operates. We're operating right now on just a very partial time frame. We're not open full time. We're just open a day and a half a week. But I may shut down, and I may not even do that if the people are going to be coming in from all over the country to go back to campus. People who are not noted for being the most wise about the ways they spend their time. I don't know. I mean, it's ridiculous that this is even something that is being discussed. But it is being discussed, and the federal government right now is turning every screw they can to tighten on people and force them to return to business as usual. And that's a terrible idea. And people are going to die, and even more than that. And here's the thing, that I've said this over and over, probably even on this show, but you can't just look at the numbers of people who are dying and say, oh, well, it's not that many people dying compared to how many people have been infected. This can easily be a very serious disease, even if it doesn't kill you. There are people suffering from, weeks and even months of debilitating fevers and fatigue. And there are people coming out with brain damage and blood clots and heart damage and lung damage that looks to be and may very well be permanent. It is certainly not just the flu. And despite the fact that some people are asymptomatic or others just get mildly sick for a little while, it's still a potentially very damaging disease, and it is hurting a lot of people. And so it's something to be careful with. And even if you don't care about yourself, even if you're just like, well, I'm going to be fine, I got a good constitution, or whatever your self-analysis is, so many people are passing this along without having any symptoms, that you are potentially a vector and you are potentially the cause of someone else's death, or disability or severe suffering. And so this is not a matter of just, well, I'm willing to take the chance, because you can't just decide for you. You are in effect deciding for everybody that you come in contact with. And asking college students, college students are pretty smart cookies, and a lot of them are fairly mature, but a lot of them aren't. And asking them to keep all this stuff in mind and be cognizant of the possibilities and be careful is a bit much, because they are not really at a place in life where they're ready to make those kinds of judgments, and much less high school kids, middle school kids, or grade school kids, which are all being asked to cram themselves back into classrooms again and take the risk, because hey, we want to open up, we want to have a humming economy. Rich people want to make more money. They're tired of not making money. This is not a good situation, and I'm going to quit ranting about that, because I've ranted before and it doesn't matter what I say. No one listens. I'm not going to say it like that. It's not like no one listens to me. I mean, you're listening to me right now. People do listen to me. I do have an effect on some people, and I can alter the conversation, and that's why I do this show. That's why I do all the shows that I do, because there is the potential there for educating people and getting them to think about things in slightly different ways than they might do otherwise. So yeah, I mean, people listen to me, but I realize sometimes when I'm going off on a tangent that I've made my point. I can't just keep making it over and over again. That is in fact one of the downsides of doing a radio show or a TV show like this, where you're just talking to an invisible audience, is that you're not getting any response. So the tendency is to just like keep going on a point, because like, no, really, I'm trying to convince you. I may have totally convinced you 5 minutes ago, but I can't tell that because I don't see you. So I'm just still like, no, really, you gotta believe me. So I apologize. I don't mean to go on and on about things, but it's kind of baked into this sort of form of sharing of information. It goes with the territory to a certain extent. Anyway, I'm going to run out of time here, so I want to try to get in another story or two. This one is entitled Judge Overturns Trump Border Rule Requiring Immigrants to First Claim Asylum in Another Country. We heard about this a while back. Anyway, a federal judge ruled on Tuesday night that Trump administration's strictest asylum policy to date is illegal. What a surprise. A rule put in place in 2019 prohibited immigrants from claiming asylum in the United States if they did not first try to claim it in a country they passed through on their way to the U.S. border. U.S. District Judge Timothy J. Kelly of Washington, D.C., ruled in favor of immigrant nonprofits and asylum seekers who argued that the rule known as the Third Country Asylum Rule, which was jointly published by the Justice Department and the Department of Homeland Security, violated the Immigration and Nationality Act. Kelly, who was appointed to the federal bench by President Donald Trump in 2017, agreed that in adopting the policy, the administration did not abide by the Federal Administrative Procedure Act, or APA, which requires that Americans be given enough time and opportunity to weigh in on such rule changes. The Immigration and Nationality Act, the judge argued, generally allows anyone who has made it to U.S. soil to apply for asylum, with some exceptions, including for those with criminal records. Quote, there are many circumstances in which courts appropriately defer to the national security judgments of the executive, Kelly wrote, but determining the scope of an APA exception is not one of them. End quote. The judge noted that the Supreme Court had blocked an earlier injunction against the rule until the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed overturning the rule. An attorney for the ACLU's Immigrants' Rights Project, which represented the plaintiffs, lauded the decision. The court recognized that the Trump administration unlawfully skipped steps mandated by Congress to ensure transparency in its failed attempt to make an end run around asylum protections, said Julie Veroff. The third country rule appeared to be aimed at Central American migrants who claimed they were fleeing gang violence. Trump has vowed to halt the migrants' treks, including so-called caravans, through Mexico. The rule has essentially forced asylum-seeking migrants from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador to first seek it from Mexico before asking the United States for help. Quote, "This decision invalidates Trump's asylum ban at the southern border," former acting Solicitor General Neil Katyal, an MSNBC legal analyst, said Tuesday night on Twitter. I'm sorry, not Katyal. Katyal, who said he was a party to the plaintiff's challenge, said the ruling would take effect immediately. On Twitter, immigration lawyer Aaron Reichlin-Melnick of the American Immigration Council called the decision a fantastic victory. The impact might not be felt immediately along the U.S.-Mexico border, Kelly wrote, that recent pandemic-related administrative actions appear to have effectively closed the southern border indefinitely to aliens seeking asylum. Last week, a federal judge in Los Angeles ordered the release of children held in the country's 3 family detention centers because of the danger posed by the coronavirus pandemic. The Trump administration did record a win last week when the Supreme Court ruled that some asylum seekers can be fast-tracked for deportation. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, and this is, quickly, I'm almost out of time, but this is really, if there's anything that kind of encapsulates the Trump administration since its beginning, is the haphazard way they go about trying to do things. Some of it, I think, is just they don't have good people doing these jobs. They just hire people that are fellow ideologues, and so they don't really know what they're doing. That's part of it. But I think another part is that they're just trying to throw as much stuff against the wall and hope that as much of it as possible will stick, because they're trying to undo so much of what has been done here in the last, 200 years or so, in terms of making this a fair place to live, a place where people have legal rights and all that. They're just trying to undo all of that. They're trying to undo everything Democrats have managed to accomplish and everything that fair-thinking people have managed to accomplish, in hopes of reimposing as much as possible of their, really warped view on our legal system. And it's interesting that even these judges that Trump himself appoints are often the ones that are telling him that he can't do these things, which goes to show that just because somebody has a good conservative record doesn't mean they're going to go along with nutty, over-the-top right-wing stuff. Anyway, I'm out of time. I hope you will join us again. In the meantime, please stay well. Take care of yourself.